realize that until I had a GoPro in my autocross car, and it's a 70-second lap typically on an
Yep.
autocross course, and I couldn't believe how many times I could swear at myself in 70 seconds. Basically, at every corner, at every cone, I could swear at myself. Hey, welcome to this episode of Inside the Sim Paddock. I'm Brian Belansky. Hope you guys are all having a great day. Hope you guys are all getting ready for the Watkins Glen 6 Hour or the first week of Season 1 on iRacing or whatever craziness you've come up with on Le Mans Ultimate. How you Forza-ing right now? I hear that is fantastic. I have downloaded, I should say my kid downloaded it because I'm not good with that stuff, but haven't had a chance to futz around with that yet, but the time will come for that as well. Got some cool stuff to talk about on the show today, and we're going to talk about also with our guest here about a new channel that we're going to debut here in just a few weeks. Hopefully, which is going to be a ton of fun. We'll get his opinion on that as well. He doesn't even know we're going to talk about that yet, but cool enough as that may be. Let's bring him in right now. Our guest today is Camden Hibbit, and he is a real-world racer, sim racer. He is a colleague of mine at Full Send Sims, and got a ton of cool stuff to talk about today. Camden, welcome to the show. How are you this morning?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me, Brian. It's a pleasure as always. Got a chance to be on the Inside the SCCA with you a couple months ago, and now getting a chance to talk some sim racing, some FSS, and just kind of catching up. So thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, full disclosure at the start of the show, I have a partnership. I work with Full Send Sims. I am the race director on a couple of their race series, and we're going to do some stuff together on some new products that they're doing. So, but yeah, just want to put that out there right away. But I do say, and I think people who've watched and listened to me long enough, my partnerships don't always mean I'm always nice to them, but we have real honest and good conversations here, and it's fun. It's fun for that as well. Kamden, I ask everybody the same first question. Now you got this question on the SCCA show, but you haven't had it on the Inside Sim Racing show. So for those folks who may not have seen the other show, I'll ask it to you here as well. How did you get mixed up in this crazy sport that we love?
Yeah, so I started racing when I was 5 years old in quarter midgets, basically caged go-karts. Got a chance to do that for 8 or 9 years until I was 13 years old. Had a lot of success in the quarter midget world. 112 feature wins, 20 series championships. Had a great time doing it with family and being able to experience that side and get kind of acclimated to the motorsports world, right? I got introduced. I'll take a step back. I got introduced when I was 2 years old by a NASCAR race on TV and had been hooked ever since then. But yeah, got to race quarter midgets for 8 years or so, and then was fortunate enough to meet David Cook, who was previously with Mazda Motorsports North America. Put me in a Spec MX-5 race car to test when I was 12 years old. Spec Miata when I was 13. Spec MX-5 shootout winner in 2024, and it has kind of just taken off since then. I got a chance to be a part of Racing Prodigy, which I'm not sure if you've talked about on this show, but a great correlation between sim racing and real world racing, right? So I was honored to be a part of the Racing Prodigy program and continue to work with them. And now I'm a round three racing junior driver in the Sebeco MPO1 Evo in the new series called Zenith Racing Series, all endurance racing, multi-class racing. And I love doing my sim racing stuff as well. Obviously, working with FSS, and I'm on the sim as much as I can.
Yeah. When did sim racing become part of this whole thing? Because obviously it sounds like you started quarter midget racing before sim racing, right?
Yeah, so I started sim racing when I was, I want to say 10 years old, 12 years old, something like that. And originally it was just kind of for fun, right? Me and my dad ran a little fantasy NASCAR league, and we ended up winning one of those years, and we were like, we don't want to put this money towards racing, right? It's money we really shouldn't have, right? So we ended up buying actually this GT Omega rig for I think 300, $400, and on a Logitech G29 for $200, and put together a little sim rig to play NASCAR Heat for about a year and Forza for about a year, and then ended up getting an iRacing subscription not long after that, right? And then eventually it just turned into kind of a more of a training tool rather than fun,
Right.
right? I still have fun with everybody, doing some fun community races and hosted races every now and then. But it is more of a training tool now, right?
Yep.
Than it ever has been. iRacing specifically has done an amazing job continuing to work with their models and physics models, and um, it's been great to kind of be able to use it more so than just a game, and now a tool for the real world stuff as well.
Yeah, I think that's something we're going to dig into here a little bit because that is kind of the mantra of Full Send Sims. Is
Yeah.
their slogan is "Practice makes podium." One of the reasons why I was really excited to become involved with you guys, and I'm kind of I think I may be the newest member of the Full Send Sims team, or one of the newest, if nothing else. And when I decided to get back and get serious about sim racing about a year ago now, gosh, it's been a year since I really dove back in. I had a couple of things with my content and everything that I wanted to kind of put forward, and I'm sure you go down the YouTube rabbit hole on occasion and you look at some of this stuff, and a lot of people have different ways that they do their content. Some of them want to go into all the different whiz bang parts. They want to get deep into immersion, all this kind of stuff. And my goal right from the start, right from the first video I did, was I want this to be, I want to come up with the best tools to do two things. One, to be as quick as I possibly can in the sim. That has been a colossal struggle for me, uh, but I've made a huge amount of improvements over the last year, and I'm still way slow. But that's another story for another podcast. But the second thing was I wanted to have the best tool for becoming faster on the racetrack. I've taken about a 20-year break from circuit racing. I've done some autocross, I've done some rally, some stuff like that, but I haven't done any wheel-to-wheel racing in about 20 years. And my goal is this year or next, hopefully, to get back behind the wheel of a real race car. And a 20-year gap is a long time from when I did it last time. I don't even think you're 20 years old. So the last time I ran on an actual racetrack to do a real race was before you were born. And I wanted this tool to be the best that it could be to help prepare me for getting back on the racetrack. I see guys like Denny Stain and, older gentlemen racers who are fantastic still racing, which means I've got years ahead of me on the racetrack. But they use a sim to keep themselves quick, to keep their skills up. So I'm interested to talk with you a little bit about that, and we'll share with people what Full Send Sims does on that regard as well. So do you do much league racing? I mean, you do the league racing, but do you do much regular iRacing, or are you basically just using it as a tool to prepare for whatever your next real world race is?
Yeah, you'll see me in official races from now every now and then, right? It's become less and less of the official side just because I don't have as much time as I used to, right? With the whole round three program now, that is a lot of prep work and behind the scenes work on the funding and networking and all of that stuff in the real world side, right? But then also working with FSS, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to manage all their digital media stuff and all the social media content and that whole digital presence side for FSS. It's taken a lot of time, right? So I don't have necessarily the hours to go spend 6 hours on an official race every night or a couple times a week. So um, the focus has shifted more so towards the league racing, right? I'm obviously heavily involved with FSS running the SMX League. Every now and then, if I can jump into the Sports Car Challenge League, I will run that as well, right? But um, yeah, it's kind of a strange dynamic now, right? Because it used to be basically all official racing
Mm-hmm.
that I would do, and now I will do a little bit of official racing when I can, But to be honest with you, a lot of the time is prepping with the team for either real life stuff or doing stuff with the FSS team and
Hmm.
um, anything like that. Obviously, I'm a part of the FSS endurance team, right? So with the 6 hour coming up next weekend,
Right.
that's a big focus this week is trying to get our teams ready for the 6 hour, making sure all the broadcast stuff is up and running, and we're good for that 6 hour event on Saturday morning. So um, it definitely changes week by week. Some weeks are all right, I got a couple hours free. I'll do some official racing, and some weeks it's I have an hour free to do the SMX League, and that is it,
Yeah.
right? So it varies quite a bit.
How much time, besides just, are you spending in the sim every week? Is it, a couple of hours? Is it, I mean, if you're prepping for a race, is it more than on other weeks? How do you work that out?
Yeah, I think prepping for racing is definitely way more, right? On a general week, I'd say anywhere from I don't know, 10 to 15 hours, right?
Hmm.
Doing a little bit of, if that's with me doing a little bit of official racing,
Hmm.
right? Doing some test driving stuff and then obviously the league stuff. But when it comes to prepping for races, me and my two teammates, Thomas and Oliver, we're on quite a bit, right? It's about I don't know, 2 or 3 hours a day. And we'll probably do 4 or 5 of those sessions a week and maybe even the week and a half before, right? So you do that math, 25 hours a week probably, or 25 hours of prep going into those events for the real life stuff in the Sebeco. So when it comes down to 2 weeks before real life events, that is pretty much all I'm doing, right? Um, Running the USF 2000 as kind of our mock Sebeco here in iRacing. We go to Road America July 10 through 12. So basically, come July 1, it's going to be really heavy on that prep side for real life stuff.
That brings up two great questions, and why I don't prep highly before we do these shows, because I love digging into what you just said. So the car you guys drive, is not on iRacing. So
Correct.
how did y'all figure out what was going to be the closest tool to drive to kind of replicate what you've got in the real world when it's not on? And I don't think it's on any of the sims, right?
No, I don't think so. Thomas or maybe it was Oliver. One of those two did a little bit of research, and it might be on AC, maybe. But I haven't dove into that side of it yet. So, and I'm really comfortable with iRacing. I
Right.
like their physics model, their tire model. So I was like, all right, how can we model this Sebeco? This really, it's a very unique car, right? It's kind of a mix between I don't know, it's a mix between like a Radical, right, and a LMP4. It's a very unique platform that it's built on. So, um, we're trying to figure out how to model this, and I got to give a shout out, credit where it's due to Stratus Racing, another real life team that runs the Sebecos, and they were able to help us out and say, all right, look, we've done the research. The USF 2000 is probably the closest in terms of aero and
Mm,
power, stuff like that. So from there, we were able to build out. They gave us a baseline setup, right, and
sure.
then the three of us kind of tuned on it a little bit to kind of make it more like what we were feeling in our cars,
Yeah.
right? But um, so we got a little bit of help from Stratus and the factory Sebeco team on that side. But even when we were building as an FSS organization, when we were building the SMX car, right, or the Spec Miata in years previous, the Spec Miata isn't in iRacing, so we were trying to make an NB Miata
Sure.
out of an NC Miata, right? So there was a lot of time that went into that. Obviously, it's fairly simple to get the baseline car, right? If you're going to build a spec Miata, you're going to get as old of a Miata as possible on the sim, right? Which ended up being the NC, and then kind of tune the BOP from there. We built a setup, right? And then when we built the SMX, that SMX model or that NC Miata model is very old. I
Hmm.
want to say it's 10 to 12 years old now, since it's been really updated and overhauled. So we've brought in a couple of real life drivers in the SMX world, including myself, to kind of help build in that setup, right, and kind of get it as close to possible. Because, as you said at the beginning of the show, I mean, full sense sims, the whole goal is to use it as a tool, like you
Right.
said, right? Practice makes podium, and that practice on the sim, that whole goal is to make it turn into a podium in real life.
Right.
So we wanted to make our league cars as close to real life as possible, so that real life SMX drivers or real life Spec Miata drivers could come into our league and um, use it as a training tool rather than just a fun iRacing league race,
Right.
right? Um, we build our schedules around the SCCA Super Tours and all the FARA events, and trying to make sure that those schedules correlate, right? So most of our events, if there's a big SCCA Super Tour event coming up, or June sprints or something, we'll put the track before or the track the week before in our Spec MX5 league set to that track.
Right.
So our real life drivers can come in, have two 20-minute races to kind of prep and experience and get a little bit of an idea of what it's going to be like, right? Nothing is perfect on the sim.
Sure.
We've come a long way, but there's always a little bit that's going to be different. So um, I always say that it is as close. iRacing is as close as you can get, right? But there's still nothing quite like
Right.
driving in real life. But our whole goal at FSS, and really what I'm doing now as well on my own personal side, is trying to use iRacing's tools to make it as real as possible. So it's as close, once you step out of the sim and get into the car 3 days later, it's as close as you can get
Yeah.
to what you just sat in at home.
I remember when I first started looking, before I even started working with you guys, I was going to do an SM Spec Miata race, and which is no longer part of FSS. We've moved on because we've added the Sports Car Challenge. But and I ran that legacy Miata for, gosh, maybe 2-3 hours, and then someone said, "Oh, but you haven't put the setup on it." And I'm like, "What? What does that mean?" And then they sent me what the setup was, and I was really surprised at how different the car drove on that setup. And then when I heard, okay, well, the setup is because they worked it out to be more closely aligned with what SM was in real life, that made just perfect sense to me. And it was really kind of like one of the things that kind of was like, these guys really are on top of the whole idea of making it as close to one for one as possible. And then the same thing has happened with the Spec MX5 series, the SMX series that we do, and that's not a stock setup off of iRacing. There's a specific setup that they use for the Spec MX races as well. The sports car challenge, not so much. It's using the setups for this that iRacing puts in, because it's hard to put 8 different car setups on, right? That's not an easy thing to do for the two different series, the GT4 and the GT3 series.
Yeah, correct. And I believe the Sports Car Challenge is an open setup series as
Right.
well. So it lets drivers that little bit of freedom to kind of use. Um, and honestly, I think it's great because obviously SMX is our, as of right now, it's our flagship series in FSS,
Right.
right? I think it's great to keep that a fixed setup and really put drivers to the test, right? And see what make it come down to the driver
Right.
ultimately, right? And that's who's going to decide the winner. But I think it's great that Sports Car Challenge is open because it gives drivers that maybe in a, I don't know, Touring 3 or Touring 4 car or STL, right? It gives those drivers a little bit of room to play with the setup a little bit and also learn that what those setup changes do in a competitive environment. Yes, it might be in a Porsche GT3 car, but still the setup changes, ride height, rake,
Sure.
sway bars, that's all going to do the same thing. It's all going to carry over pretty much as possible from car to car. So
Yeah.
I think it's great that we allow people to, in that Sports Car Challenge series, to build their own setups, right? It gives them the opportunity to learn that stuff and
Which is also
really
a real life experience,
correct. Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. And
Um,
even in, like I said, if you get into the touring classes in SCCA or anything like that, I mean, that's honestly one of the most important parts, right?
yep.
All those cars are a little bit different. So ultimately, whoever can, yes, you got to be fast behind the wheel, but whoever can make their car drive the best and handle the best, right? That's going to be a big part of the outcome of those races.
Yeah.
So, yes, it might, like I said, it might be in a Cayman or a Mustang GT3 car, but still, those general setup changes are going to translate, and you're still going to be able to learn from that and hopefully take that back into real life. And obviously, that's the whole goal of what we're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole center of all the things we're developing behind the scenes that we'll get to release over the next couple months. And um, I'm really, really proud to be a part of the team and the goal that or the motto that we're following.
And let's be honest, iRacing has a very captive audience on the MX5. It's the rookie class. It's where everybody starts. People are gonna drive that car regardless of what their development on it as far as the sim goes. And then you look at the GT3 and GT4. They're constantly developing those two classes of cars because those are kind of their premier classes now as you go up through the ranks of iRacing. So to put our own setup on it on FSS makes sense for SMX, but to follow what iRacing is doing for the GT3, GT4 classes also makes sense because they're kind of on top of the game there, especially on the GT3 side. I don't know how much they futz around with the GT4 cars, but certainly on the GT3 side, they're regularly putting out updates on those cars, updates on the tile model, updates on the BOP. So that makes a sense to kind of follow along with what they're doing there. A couple of things, and I want to let people know we're going to give some real world stuff, even if you're not involved or interested in what we do at FSS or anything. We're going to talk about a little on track scenario that we encountered this week and how we would deal with it in the real world versus how sometimes it's dealt with in the sim world. And I think that'll be a good bit of knowledge to pass along to folks who might be just getting started out, or maybe just a good reminder for everybody on the sim. But back to your prep for real world racing, you found a car that worked with that's not exactly what you drive in the real world, but you find the closest one for one. When you and your team are practicing for a race, do you guys get together on a hosted session with each other? Are you grinding it out by yourselves? A little bit of both?
Yeah, I'd say it's a little bit of both, right? I think initial prep starts kind of by yourself, right? You got to get a little bit of seat time and at least get close by yourself, right?
Right.
But then really day 2, day 3, we jump in hosted sessions and put some AI cars on the track to imitate the traffic, right? Obviously, in Zenith now we have ZP2, which is the top class, prototype class, which is what we are in. Based on a I think it's a 9-to-1 power to weight ratio. And then you got ZR2, which is basically GT4 cars, the Genettas, the BMW M4s, right? That's a very interesting dynamic between the two of those because the ZP2 cars are miles faster in the corners, right? But when you get to the straightaway, the GT4s will pull on you a little bit. So it's a very interesting dynamic to kind of learn. And I'll be honest, even before Sonoma and Barber, one of the big things we did was put some GT4s on the track in the sim and kind of learn that dynamic, right?
Mm,
We're going to catch you in the corner, but when you get to the straightaway, those GT4s are going to drive away. So it makes it really difficult to pass and manage that traffic. And then you have ZR3, which is what we use in the sim to model the ZR3 classes, BMW M2s. The Club Sports is what we had been using now with the new M2 coming out. I don't know what model we use, but yeah, so it's really interesting to kind of learn that side of it right on the sim, especially I always say that the racecraft and the race management side, you can learn more of that on the sim than you can the physics, right? The physics will
sure.
take you so far.
Right.
The physics side will take you so far, but without a full motion rig and spending $200,000-$300,000 on a proper motion rig and everything like that, you're not going to be able to learn what the car feels like underneath you and right exactly what it's going to do in real life. But to be honest with you, I can't think of very many situations that you can't understand or experience in the sim from a race situation standpoint, um, race management, racecraft, right? There's not many of those instances in real life that you won't experience in the sim. So that's
Yeah.
something that we really try and put to good use is, yes, we focus on the lap time and the pace and the driving style and all of that, but ultimately what we spend the most time on in event prep is traffic management, fuel saving, strategy, right?
Sure.
Trying to understand the aspects and the strategy that goes into it, both on the pit side of it, but also just the general driving side, right? Racecraft, where is the easiest place to make a move on in-class cars versus out-of-class cars, right? Where are those GT4 cars going to drive away from you in the certain parts of the track? Where are we going to have the advantage on other parts of the track? So, to go back to your original question, yes, we do spend a little. It's a little bit of both, right?
Right.
But I will say a lot of the time is spent as a group of three, and we'll even bring in some other friends of ours, right? FSS colleague Beans Forster has joined us for some event prep. Morgan Burkhardt has joined us for some event prep, and we help him out on the IMSA side. So it's a cool environment, and good to have that group of people that you can call up and say, hey, we're doing event prep for Road America this weekend. Would you come help and kind of be an extra car to use as racecraft? And
Yeah.
everybody's like, yeah, that's perfect, right? So we'll get 6 to 8 cars come the final couple sessions, and really have good racecraft battles, and it really helps a lot on the mindset and the mental side of what you're actually doing behind the wheel.
Well, if you're ever looking for someone to be on one of those sessions that's a rolling chicane, I'm your man for that. I don't know on that series if they have any, new drivers or gentleman drivers who aren't real fast on pace, but I would be very good at simulating that for you. So you keep me in mind for that kind of stuff.
We'll get you involved, Brian. That's no problem.
I love it. Hey, one of the things you just brought up, which is really cool, talking about strategy and setups and that kind of thing. So when you do your stuff, do you have any of your team engineers join you in the sessions so they can listen to those discussions, or you just provide that feedback back to them with what you learned on the line online?
Usually we just provide it and kind of relay it ourselves.
Sure.
A lot of with it being such a different car, right? One's a Formula car, one's a
Right.
closed wheel prototype, right? It's very hard to translate the setup. Like, yes, you can get those general setup changes, but the way the car is going to handle to wing changes and aero changes and stuff like that is going to be very different. So um, we usually just relay that information. Sometimes we'll get Marshall, our car chief and lead engineer, on those calls to kind of experience, and he'll drive too, right? So
Right.
that way, when he's on the radio, he can understand what situations we're in, right?
Sure.
He's a real life driver in SCCA as well, so he kind of gets those scenarios, right? But if he can get on the sim and kind of experience what we're going to experience that weekend, right? He can be more confident and more clear on the radio on what we're actually going through behind the wheel, right?
Right.
With in traffic. And I know I got on the radio at VIR a couple weeks ago and got super frustrated. And he was like, "Hey, calm down, 12 hours. I get it, but it's a long way to go, right?"
Yeah.
So for him to be able to have that knowledge, right, knowing that GT4 cars in South Bend are going to be way slower, but you can't do anything, right?
Yeah.
It's good to have that knowledge. So. Um, Again, a little bit of both, right? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It all depends on schedules as well. Everybody's very busy, so it's hard to fit in that much prep for everyone as well. So
I want to see some of those sessions where you're running the Formula 2000 with, some GT4 cars on the racetrack. I think that would be a hoot to watch.
it's interesting for sure. That's especially when you put those AI cars on
Yeah.
track. Some of those GT4s are the GT4 AI get very confused when you pass them one corner, then in the middle of the straightaway, they're blowing right back past you.
Yeah.
It's definitely an interesting dynamic, and it's good to learn, right? Because you do have some gentleman drivers in Zenith, right? To your point, so having some sense of unpredictability, right?
Yeah.
With some of the older drivers that don't necessarily have that as much experience, right? Like you said, I mean, Danny's saying, like, some of those guys that you mentioned earlier, they are older drivers that I wouldn't even classify as gentleman drivers because they are as good as anybody in those
100%.
series, right?
Yep.
But you do come across some drivers that they started last year, right? Now they're in a BMW GT4. So it's just you have to be very careful, and as dumb as it sounds, some of the AI unpredictability can help train that a little
Yep.
bit. So it's good to have that every now and then.
And even people who are, got a lot of experience might not have experience in any kind of multi-class racing,
Correct. Yeah.
and that's a whole different skill set. You can be, crazy fast in a single class type thing, but when you start having to deal with multi-class racing, especially on the endurance level where the car, red car number 25 might have Camden Hibbit in it today or in this stint, but might have a completely different driver in it in a different stint, and their skill levels or pace might be completely different from each other, and you just can't assume that red car number 25 is going to do the same thing in this corner on this lap that it did 2 hours ago. And that's just hard to learn until you get out there and doing it. So tons of tons of interesting insight to put out there with us. I appreciate that. Let's do this. I'm going to take a quick stop here and thank the partners here for about 30 seconds. Don't go anywhere. And then when I come back, I've got some other great stuff to chat about, so stand by with me here. Of course, we want to thank everybody for being part of what we do here on Inside the Sim Paddock. Couldn't do it without my partners. And we've got, of course, we've talked about it, Full Send Sims. They are one of the best turnkey sim operations here in the U.S. Put together a great white glove service. They'll drop off the sim at your location, whether it's your home or your business or your shop, do all the setup for you, test it, support it once it's been installed. They also have a new product coming out for those of you who don't necessarily want the white glove service, who like to tinker and build things like I do. That's coming out here pretty quick. Can't wait for that. I'm going to get a chance to put one of those together. We're going to do a bunch of content on that as well. So, and of course, we're going to talk a little bit about the two leagues. We've already kind of touched on them, but those are open to anybody to join us, and we're going to let you know how to do that in just a little bit. Also, Morgan Burkhart Motorsports. He is Morgan, of course, is one of our Full Send Sims drivers, but also he is an IMSA driver in the Michelin Pilot Challenge. He does coaching as well, both in real life and for the sim. He is my coach, and while I'm not great in pace just yet, the improvement that he has helped me get over the last year is remarkable, and it's been great to have him on board. So if you need a great coach, either in real life or on the sim, check out the show notes and hook up with him as well. So, back now with Camden Hibbit on the show here, and talking about sim racing, talking about Full Send Sims leagues, and all that other cool stuff here. Let's talk about the Full Send Sims leagues for a second. We've kind of touched on what they are. We've got the SMX League and the Sports Car Challenge League. We haven't talked as much about Sports Car Challenge. So that is, tell us a little bit about how that schedule works out and the cars that are involved there.
Yeah, so Sports Car Challenge is new to us this year. As it's a very interesting series because in the past we had obviously Spec Miata. We brought on Spec MX5, I think, at the beginning of 2025. And all of last year we ran Spec Miata and Spec MX5 combined side by side. This year we made SMX our flagship series and kind of put SM to the side for a little bit and brought on a new series to kind of develop and test to hit it hard in 2027. Sports Car Challenge, which, as Brian mentioned earlier, is GT3 and GT4. 50-minute races or 55-minute races, I believe, but with a little bit of a limited fuel capacity that makes it, I believe, requires a stop. It's some tracks you can make it on fuel.
Right.
It's very close. If you save a lot of fuel, you can make it, but it makes it a very interesting dynamic, right? Some cars will cut the pace back and try and make it on fuel. Some cars will go hard 100% and take that pit stop, right? So it makes a very interesting dynamic. And then you got the whole side of the schedule, as you mentioned. SMX is weekly, every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. we go racing. Sports Car Challenge is not that way. We follow the real life IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge schedule. So it's a very cool series to follow along with, right? A little bit of a different mindset than SMX, right? You're sometimes waiting a month, 6 weeks before you go back racing again. SMX, you have a problem, you're back at it the next week, right? So it's cool to kind of see that we're expanding into some different platforms, right? Different sides of the industry. Like I said, this is kind of a development series and a test year for us, right?
Yep.
To really bring everything back in 2027. Obviously, no broadcasts this year for SMX. Hoping to try and get some broadcasts in before the end of the year, but definitely in 2027 we'll have something back up and running for the SMX broadcast. So we're kind of taking this as a company with a lot of things behind the scenes on the product side and all of that going on that are coming out soon. We're taking it the same kind of approach on the league side as well to kind of rebuild, do some testing and try some new things and really come back strong in 2027 and I'm very excited for that. I can't wait to see what we can build. Obviously with SMX coming back in 27 and Sports Car Challenge becoming our other flagship series running alongside SMX on a broadcast. It's going to be very cool to see how that goes, and I can't wait for January 1.
Yeah, I think when the SM and SMX were the original two, SM was kind of looked at as the development series for SMX. And maybe at one point that made sense, but very few people come into a league type situation like this with no racing experience on iRacing. So I think the SM portion as the development was kind of almost a bit redundant and not as needed as maybe it was when we started when it was started. And I think now people want to expand beyond the SMX, which makes the Sports Car Challenge a really great opportunity. The both of these series are open to anybody to join, and we would love to have a whole lot more people doing both. How do people get involved with the Full Send Sims series?
Yeah, so you can find Full Send Sims on the internet, fullsendsims.com. But you can also find us on Instagram and YouTube. Instagram's our main source that we can really connect with you guys. Shoot us a message, Instagram at Full Send Sims. If you'd like to get involved, our Discord channel is on the website and LinkedIn, Instagram. So all the league stuff runs through the league Discord. So once you join that Discord, you'll get a prompt of, I think, 5 or 6 steps to join the league. Very simple, takes maybe 10 minutes to do all those steps. One of our league admins or our lead league admin, Jim Friedhofer, will reach back out to you and get you all accepted and up and running. You have one requirement to do before you race in either of the series. You have to attend an FSS Racecraft Academy, which we'll touch on in a minute.
Yep.
A very cool program, but all in all, about 10 minutes of an application process and an hour-long Racecraft Academy session that is more useful than most people think, which I'm assuming we'll get into that. But it's a cool program, very simple, very easy to get involved with. Like I said, fullsendsims.com or at fullsendsims on Instagram, the two best ways to learn more about the league.
And it doesn't matter whether you are a 10K iRating guy or a sub 1K iRating guy like I am. Everyone goes through the Racecraft Academy. It's 1 hour. And touch a little bit about how a Racecraft Academy session plays out over that hour.
Yeah, so in addition to my social media and the digital media side of FSS, I'm one of FSS, one of Full Send Sims, there we go, coaches and instructors that help run the Racecraft Academy. So I'm joined by Beans Forrester and Trace Hance, our other 2 instructors, to run Racecraft Academy. So each Monday before the race, right? So SMX races are on every single Tuesday. Sports Car Challenge is specific Wednesdays, right? But anytime there's a race that week, we have a Racecraft Academy session for that series on Monday. It's an hour-long session. Any new drivers are required to attend that Racecraft Academy session. It's free to attend. And anybody there after that just wants some additional coaching, additional practice, additional tips, advice, right? It's free for all league members to join those sessions. So the way we usually do it, 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes to just warm up, get some laps in. Instructors will kind of watch along and give you some small tips here and there. Then we ask everybody to go to the pit lane, right? One of our instructors will do a hot lap walkthrough, 2 to 3 laps or so, to really hit all the points in specific. And then from there, we'll go back out for another 10 to 15 minutes until the 30-minute mark. Once we hit the 30-minute mark, we go to what we call our mock race portion of Racecraft Academy, which is a very cool part. We take all of our drivers in the session, line them up, and like it said, we do mock races. We do 2-lap shootouts. We treat it like real races. If you don't make it to the end, right? It is what it is, but we ask you take it as a learning experience, right? Rather than, oh, well, I crashed, but it doesn't matter. It's Racecraft Academy, right? No, we ask you to take it seriously, and take any mistakes or anything you learn as that learning experience, right? And take it into the real life series on Tuesday or Wednesday that following 2 days. To try and eliminate the turn 1 incidents, right? We'll have a turn 1 incident in Racecraft Academy at least once a week, but ever since we started doing Racecraft Academy, it has lessened the amount of turn 1 incidents we have in the real life series.
Right.
So, it's great to see that people are taking it seriously and are learning, but the best part is it's free for all league members to join. It's a free hour-long coaching set or group coaching session, right? So I highly recommend everybody do it. You have me, Trace Hance, and Beans Forrester. 3 top class instructors that really know what they're doing, both on the especially on the SMX side, but also in Sports Car Challenge,
Yep.
right? All 3 of us have been in the SMX series since the start of it at the beginning of last year. Most of us have been in SM, or I was the last one to join SM. I did 2 or 3 seasons of Spec Miata. Trace and Beans have been with FSS since the beginning, so
Yep.
lots of experience in those cars. We can really teach you a lot, and even on the Sports Car Challenge side. It's a really great program. Like I said, mandatory for all the new league members, but I would highly recommend anybody that's looking for a little bit more experience, right? Maybe you want to get into some of the, or to try some coaching, but you don't want to commit to an hour-long private session. Come join us for Racecraft Academy. It's a free hour-long group session
Yep.
each week. It's a great program.
And I would emphasize the word free. I mean,
Exactly.
where
Yeah.
do you get a weekly coaching session every week and not have to pay for it anymore? You
Yeah.
know, that's a huge value. And I think a lot of times I found people kind of roll their eyes, especially if I've done a lot of iRacing, but when they have to get into a league and they'll you have a academy I have to go through. But I have a feeling that people kind of roll their eyes, do the first one, and then shockingly keep coming back week after week after week for more coaching when they realize the value that they get out of that. So I think that's pretty fantastic. One other thing I want to touch on in the series before we move on is that the series are run as if it is a real life race. And we have, I am the race director for both of the series, and I lead a team of stewards who all have real life racing experience. And at the end of every race, we don't live steward these races. That's something we'd love to get to at some point in time, and that may come. But at the end of every race, I go back and watch every lap of all the races, and point out different situations that I think need to be looked at, as well as we look at the protests that have come in from each race. Every driver has the opportunity to protest, and we go through every single one of these post-race and decide whether we need to have a discussion with the driver, whether there's a penalty involved, and we're applying real-world driving standards to iRacing. And that's something we don't get in the officials. We hear about the bitching and complaining about, I've been taken out by this, and how come I get an incident point when it wasn't my fault, and all this kind of stuff. Well, but we also provide the feedback with it when we do have an incident. If it's something simple, that's obvious, I don't pick up the phone or I don't send a Discord message to that driver. But if it's something more complicated or more serious, I'll have a one-on-one conversation with a driver and kind of hash it out and explain to them what we thought they did wrong. More importantly, what we think they could have done differently to make it not happen. And for folks who haven't had real world life experience, I think that's a really valuable part of what we do, because it will just prepare them for, hopefully, if they decide to go do this in the real world, what they're going to find when they get out there. So just another little layer of the onion of what these series do, and I think that's another bit of value that you get out of these. So there was one. Oh, let's do this. This is going to be the real world for folks who maybe don't want to do the full send sims. We had a situation in our last race that you were involved with.
I was.
Yeah. We're going to leave the other driver's name out because, that's not important to the discussion. But we had a situation where you got into it with a driver, and that driver ended up was in the lead pack and got spun. And whether that part was your fault or not, we won't get into. But maybe it was, maybe a tiny bit.
Maybe a little.
And he was a bit torqued off, and got his car fixed and waited for you to come back around in the lead pack, rejoin the race, and a lap or two later, put you in a wall, or at least took you out of the lead pack. Obviously, in the real world, there's consequences in that, and we had consequences in our league as well. Those are probably pretty obvious. You can imagine what we would do there. But let's talk about for a second, all new drivers, and I'm not going to even say young drivers, all new drivers in iRacing or any kind of sim racing, managing emotions and the situation at hand is hard. I'm 4 times your age, 3 times your age. I have a hard time with it, and I've done real world driving as well. How do you learn? How did you learn to not react badly to when you've been done wrong?
Well, let me just start by saying this. I am still learning.
Okay, that's fair.
I'll start with that, right? I mean, um, yeah, we had that incident, right? And um, I mean, I was as mad. I've been doing FSS and both iRacing and FSS for a very long time, right? And I've never been. I take FSS very seriously, right? It's a very well put together league.
Yep.
A multi-time champion in SMX, and I am very proud of that. I think one-time champion in SM, right? I'm very proud of that, right? To be able to race with drivers like Morgan, Nick, Beans, right? To week in and week out, to be able to say that I have beat those drivers multiple times, that's something that is not a light task, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very proud of that, and so I take it seriously, and I haven't been as mad as I was last Tuesday in an FSS race for a very long time. And I feel like I did I won't say a good job, I'll say an okay job at managing my emotions after the race, right? I drove up to this driver's car, just drove up to his door pretty much the whole cooldown lap, and just kind of showed my displeasure. I don't think we made any contact on the cooldown lap. Maybe I think we hit each other going into pit lane, which was accidental. But
Sure it
either way,
was.
right? Yeah, no, yeah, I know what that sounds like. But no, so I mean, I tried my best, right? And as soon as I got off the track, and 5 minutes later, right, I'm very proud to say that I work with FSS and I'm an instructor with FSS,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not the reputation that we have as a company, right? So I kind of gave myself a slap on the wrist, and during our stewards meeting on Thursday, um, any driver who's involved, for clarity, right? Any drivers who's involved in an incident or a protest that might be as admin or on the stewarding team is not allowed to say anything regarding that incident that's being discussed.
Right.
So I went on mute and I could hear the conversation kind of wrapping up, and I was like, "Hey, um, I need something for the end lap, right? That was
Yeah.
not cool, right?"
We
So
were
I ended
getting
up
to
giving.
that, by the way.
Okay, well, I couldn't tell, right? I wanted to make sure we were clear, right? Because that
Yeah.
incident on the cooldown lap deserved something, right?
Mm-hmm.
A DS1 at minimum, which is for anybody who's new to FSS is I think it's the minimum driving standards
Right.
penalty in the FSS league, but it is pretty substantial. It's 2 points on your license, and I think a -5 point penalty in the championship standing. So it does mean something, right? And I wanted to make sure that those consequences were paid from myself, right?
Right.
As a 17-year-old, to answer your question, I'm still learning, right?
Right.
But I do think that the sim racing has helped, right? I think um, being able to go through those experiences and be like, okay, looking back on it almost a week later now, I went from first to fourth. Okay, big deal, right? Like at the end of the week or at the
Right.
end of the year, are those 4 spots really going to matter? Probably not. I think in the moment, I think the principle of what had taken place is really what kind of pushed me over the edge,
Right.
right? But in the end, those 4 spots, if it ends up meaning the championship, then I'll look back on it and say I shouldn't have gone up into his door and lost myself 5 championship points after the checkered,
Right.
right? Like it is what it is. So, um, having those experiences in the sim, I think, really helps you in real life, and also, I mean, it helps you in the sim as well. But especially for us real life drivers, it helps you kind of manage those emotions a little bit, right? And being able to have those experiences on the sim, where truthfully it doesn't really matter, right? The consequences aren't as big of a deal,
Right.
right? Definitely consequences that people take it seriously, right? But you're not spending $30,000 if you put an SM on the wall or anything
Right.
like that, right? The financial consequences aren't there, and ultimately the consequences aren't going to be as big in the sim,
Right.
right? FSS, we have pretty big consequences and we gave out pretty big consequences for what took place last week, but it's not going to be a year-long, 2-year-long ban like it
Right.
might be in SCCA or anything like that. So to be able to have those experiences and ultimately take them as learning experiences, right? I said on our meeting on Thursday, the 17-year-old in me came out after the checkered, and I got frustrated and did something I shouldn't have, right?
Right.
But I think me and the other driver involved were able to managed yet. I know we had a conversation. I believe you had a conversation with the other
Yep.
driver, right? We're going to try and take it as a learning experience, right? But I think those experiences happening in the sim are really important, that not only that there's something we can learn from, but it's important that they happen now, right? Rather than in a real life spec Miata race at Sebring, right? Because if you do something like that, and um, even if the contact that caused all this, right, that little light contact in turn six, that ended up spinning this other driver, right? No matter what the outcome was, right? If it was blatantly the trailing driver's fault,
Right.
if you go out and retaliate and put somebody in the wall in a real life race at Sebring, there's going to be major consequences to
Yep.
that, right? So,
I and
for that to be able to happen now, I think is a good thing, and to be able to learn from it.
two points on that. I'm not saying that there aren't retaliation in the real world. It
Right.
happens.
Yeah.
Your little at the end of the race argy bargy that you did was kind of similar to what you might find in the real world. Kind of
Yeah.
mild, maybe a little bumper tap at the end, maybe a raised finger to tell someone they're number one, that kind of thing. That's not uncommon, and sometimes there are consequences for that. And sometimes I've seen people do what was done to you in the real world too, and that can be very dangerous and very painful
Yeah.
and expensive, and people can get hurt. I think part of the problem is, and man, this could be a whole nother podcast. We see not very good behavior when we watch professional racing on the weekends on television. Um, in one form of racing more so maybe than others. And I hate to roll my stock car friends under the bus on this kind of thing because I enjoy watching an NASCAR race as much as anybody. But that kind of retaliation, boys will be boys, is a much more prevalent thing in the circle track roundy round world than it is in the sports car Formula car world. But I think kids come up, young people in particular, come up and they watch racing on TV and think, well, that's how everybody does it in real life. Well, when you get to the early portions of your career, that is not how it happens in real life. And if it does happen, there's some really significant consequences for that kind of stuff. And if we can train people that way on the sim, then they're just going to be better off when they get to the real world. So I think it's important that we talk about those things. So it was an interesting conversation through our stewarding process, and I will say happily that the conversation I had with the driver involved went really well. They knew they had messed up before I even got to them, and their penalty was severe, but not so severe that they can't make up for it. And I don't think they're going to do something like that again, probably ever. Is my
Yeah.
guess. And it was, it's a good learning process. And the other thing is, we don't have a huge prize pool or anything at the end of our season. We do have some prizes, but it wasn't like there was any huge consequences. Even if you come in, you don't win your championship, kind of thing with that 5 points. So,
Yeah.
lots of interesting stuff to chat about on that. So,
Well, and I want to add one thing, Brian. You
sure,
mentioned the NASCAR side, right? But I also think that specifically on the sim racing world, um, people get away with too much in the official side,
yes,
right? So when you switch over from, maybe you were doing an official race an hour before, now you switch into an FSS League race, the mindset needs to be different, right? And
right,
it's a hard thing to do, right? Retaliation in official racing, you can get away with it, as much as I hate to say it,
yep,
right? It's definitely something that if you do right, I've seen and been victim of people that do it correctly and don't get a ban, don't get consequences for it, right? So that's something for anybody listening, right? Yes, it's a game, but treat it like, don't be stupid, right?
yeah,
Is the ultimate, the end message, right? I mean, um, there are people that are doing it for fun, and that's what I would say most of the clientele are, right? But I think you have drivers that are taking it seriously, doing event prep or doing even prep on the sim to try and get faster, right?
right.
Using it to help get faster, just to be on the sim, right? A faster sim racer. So um, for anybody that is seeing that sort of thing in official racing, protest it, right? It takes 5-10 minutes to write a simple protest. See if we can get iRacing to take care of some of those things, because ultimately I think that is part of the issue as well, right? I mean, you see some drivers come out of iRacing even and kind of act like that on the real life track, and I think a lot of that comes from the idea that drivers can go home on the weekend and really do whatever they want in the sim in a very realistic setting, right? But don't treat it that way. So that's something that I think needs to be said and kept in the back of everyone's mind um, as we're having this conversation.
Yeah. I think it's one thing also. I just think that a lot of people who have never been in the real world and jump on a sim don't understand what the driving standards should be. I just think they don't know.
Yeah.
There's a couple of guys who I follow, streamers, and one in particular who's really fast, but he doesn't understand what a clean pass is. And he'll throw his car in there and have contact and go, well, I had a tiny bit of my front bumper next to a tiny bit of their rear bumper. That's my corner, and I love the guy, and I've been part of his events and everything, but he just doesn't equate that to being wrong. And
Yeah.
one of the things I'm going to do is, I'm fortunate now with doing this podcast, I've met some really high-end iRacers. I'm going to do a series of this is what should be expected of people. And I have a lot of respect for iRacing. It is so hard to police what happens on iRacing. There's, hundreds of races, maybe even 1,000 races a week. And hundreds of thousands of drivers race every week on iRacing. It's impossible to really police it like we would like it to be policed. Not possible. And I think they do a pretty, I won't even say a pretty decent job. They do the job they can do. I wish it were better. I don't know how, I don't even know how I would suggest that they fix it, understanding the volume of stuff that they have to deal with. I would like to know what they decide when I protest, to find out if they've decided this was a valid protest and what the penalty might have been. I
agree.
think that would be I think that would be helpful for the people on the service to understand, so that people realize that when you do a protest, something happens. I think a lot of people don't protest, nothing ever happens. I think stuff happens, but without knowing what that is, it's hard to, until you've been dinged by iRacing. I haven't. The other thing I think is a big problem with iRacing is, and I know it's fun, and it adds to the experience, but the iRacing chat, when you're racing in real life, can you yell at the radio, into the radio, at the driver that just may have cut you off or done something you didn't like? Can you do that?
No, you can't.
No, you can't do that, can you?
No, you get one radio, and that's to your pit box back in the pit lane.
Right.
That's it.
You can bitch to your teammate about it.
Yeah.
To your crew chief about it. But if you cut me off, I can't click a button and yell at you during a race. I think that's actually a big problem, and the root cause of some of what happens on iRacing is that people let those emotions spill over, and then I hear you yell at me, and then I start yelling back at you, and it just boils and boils and boils. And maybe I get an opportunity to explain to you in a very different term how I feel about it. And I think I don't personally, I keep my button available to talk, to do one thing. And that is, hey, Kamden, sorry about that. Didn't do that on purpose. I made a mistake. That's the only time I click that button. Because I know that if I don't say something, I might get binned because they don't know what my intent was. I don't listen to anything. And I have the chat, the written chat, out of my view. So I don't see someone telling me that I'm a asshole or an F-head or whatever the case may be, because I'm sure it's happened. Because I can't do that in real life, And that is the one thing I think, if iRacing were to change that portion of it, they won't, because people love the entertainment value and it's a business, and I know why they do it. But let me tell you right now, if you want to improve your iRacing and make it more of a simulation, don't listen to the chat.
Yeah. I think even if you did something where turn it under yellow, right? If you're in an oval race, right? But under green, I mean, you don't get that luxury, right? To yell at the person that just blocked you or whatever. Right. I raised my right hand. I yelled at my crew chief and
Yep.
car chief and
Oh yeah.
my dad that's on the radio, right, and say, hey, this guy, blah 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 blah, right? But it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change his mindset, right? It might help you feel better about yourself, but it
Yeah.
doesn't change the interaction between the two of you. So, um, I 100% agree with you, right? And I also agree that iRacing can't police everything that happens, right? There's plenty of intentional wrecks that I would even confidently say happen per day, right? On the iRacing service across the whole platform. But I mean, if we as a group of clientele, right? I mean, we need to do it ourselves to some extent as well, right?
Right.
Yes, we can help protest it, but say, hey, that probably wasn't the smartest thing to do, right?
Right.
Have those conversations and be able to say, even if you're in that situation, you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm sitting on pit lane getting ready to repair the car. You're sitting on pit lane getting ready to repair the car, knowing that you're going to go back out on track, and even in the back of your head, you have that instinct to go find the person that just wrecked you. Just leave the session. Just it's not
Yep.
worth it, right? At the end of the day, it's just not worth it. And again, like I said, I'm 17 years old. I'm racing in real life, being able to live out my dream and continue to chase my goals to go race as a professional driver, as a career someday, right? And
Yep.
I'm still learning that. I've had 4 or 5 years of real life experience in SCCA, Zenith, all this stuff, and I am still learning how to manage that. So I get it, right? For everybody that's listening to this show, and I've been in that situation before, right? Even last week,
Hmm.
as badly as I wanted to show that other driver my displeasure, um, I didn't do a great job, but I did an okay job of managing it and not doing worse than what I did,
Right.
right? um, and being able to represent the people that I represent, right? I'm fortunate to represent FSS week in and week out as an instructor and digital media manager and all my partners, even on the sim, right? I mean, I have plenty of partners in real life that help me do what I do. Um, on the sim, I need to represent them as well. So um, there's lots more people watching than you think,
Hmm.
that's for sure. So just keep that in the back of your head next time you're sitting on pit road waiting to go wreck somebody.
Right.
Um, just leave the session, register for the next race, and try again on the next one. Um, in most of these series, there's races every hour. That one DNF is not really going to affect you 6 years down the road.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. Most of what I'm yelling at things on the sim or even in real life is I'm yelling at myself more than I am the drivers.
Right. Yeah.
Damn it, Brian! Why did you do that? Or gosh,
Exactly.
I swear 99% of the F bombs are directed right at myself. Yeah, so that's always my comfort zone is yelling at myself.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Sometimes you have to hit the radio button just to make you feel better, but
right,
yeah.
right. Yeah, I didn't realize that until I had a GoPro in my autocross car, and it's a 70-second lap typically on an
Yep.
autocross course, and I couldn't believe how many times I could swear at myself in 70 seconds. Basically, at every corner, at every cone, I could swear at myself. But yeah, good stuff. Kamden, thanks. I appreciate you taking some time. I think this was a little bit of a pitch for people to come and race with us on the FSS league, which is fine, and I have no problem. Also, if anybody else has a great league they want to talk about, reach out to me through my Discord channel, Graybeard Sim Racer, or however you want to leave a comment in on this podcast. And I'm always looking for interesting people to talk to. So if you've got a story in a league you want to pitch, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm good with doing some more of this kind of stuff. So I think league racing is a very interesting layer to our puzzle here, piece to the iRacing puzzle. And I think for a lot of people, it's a great opportunity to do what we do and not have to worry about the safety rating and not have to worry about the I rating. I think there's a lot of positives in league racing as well. So last point on the penalties in iRacing. The only thing I wish iRacing would change, or one of the things, is if you are found to have not been, if you file a protest and they find that the other person did something wrong, you can't get your I rating back, but I would love for them to give you a little safety rating back, because that's I think that would be the only thing I think they could do. But then I think if they opened that door, everybody would protest everything,
Right.
and they would never ever be able to get through all the protests. So it's just so hard to do it at the scale that they're at. So.
Yeah.
All right, this is your chance to thank your partners, your friends, your family. Go at it. It's all yours.
Well, first of all, thank you, Brian, for allowing me to jump on the show and be a part of it. I know it's always a pleasure. Give me a chance to do Inside the SCCA last year and now Inside the Sim Paddock. So very happy to be able to be a part of it. But I mean, thank you for everybody that helps me do what I do. Right? Obviously, Full Send Sims, Port Schmidt, boss man, recovering right now from a recent surgery, but he is great at what he does and gives all of us the opportunity to go do what we love to do on the sim, but also help support me and my team in real life. So um, FSS Court, thank you for everything. All my partners in real life, Buyers Are Near, Lifetime Financial Growth, Round 3 Racing, Sabeco, everybody that lets me do what I'm able to do in real life. It's I know this is a sim racing show, but the sim racing side is really the biggest tool I have, and it all correlates back to being able to let me do in real life what I do in real life. It's been great. I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's a lot of work most days, most weeks, but um, it's been a great experience, and I'm hoping to continue the journey and maybe in 2-3 years jump back on the inside shows and be able to share more of the journey, maybe in IMSA, whatever it might be. But it's been great. Thank you for allowing me to share my story, and it's been a pleasure as always, Brian.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Sim Paddock. I'm Brian Belansky. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, like and subscribe, and help us out with that. That always helps the algorithm. Lets more people find out more about what we do. Appreciate that as well. If you want to be a guest, exactly like I said, you can hit me up on Discord. It is Graybeard Sim Racer. You can also send me an email. You can put a comment in the chat. But probably hitting me up on Discord's the best way to get in touch with me to be a guest, or even suggest a guest if you don't think you should be a guest, although I think everybody's got a great story and I love telling them. But if you know someone who should be a guest, put me in contact with them as well. And if you want to be a partner on the show, we've got a couple of partners, but I'm always up for more. And the more we can get, we can make this thing a little bit bigger and more awesome. It's not a free process that we do here, but we want to do a lot more of it and also support some other leagues and that kind of thing. But yeah, help us out here. You can hit me up for that as well. You guys have yourself a great week. Stay safe. Go have fun on your sim. We'll be back next week with another show.